wrong. And shockingly enough, the prosecutor, my guess, and we'll find out if it's true, is going to say, oh, we looked so hard and heavy into this. God, you know what? You see a 12-year-old black kid, what are you going to do? You're going to shoot him immediately, right? Not guilty. We'll find out if that's the case, but that is clearly where they're heading. And were these real investigations? Hell no. That's my final judgment.
Joey Okay. Joey Jackson, what is your take on what you just heard? And what is your take on this story and what what they're saying that this is justified?
Pretty powerful stuff. Interestingly enough, I actually wrote an op-ed on it on CNN.com, regarding the whole Tamir Rice expert reports. And just to be clear, the reports were commissioned by the prosecutor, McGinty, and what he did was he had two people in law enforcement, essentially, a former FBI agent who's teaching now, in addition to a prosecutor, look at this. And so, and they came back and their expert opinion was that the shooting was justified. It's somewhat of a farce, and the reason I say that is because, in this business, or the business of law, you can get an expert to say essentially anything you want the expert to say. And so when you look at reports that are commissioned by the prosecutor and that are given to people who have a law enforcement background, I mean, prosecutors, I was one, you work with the police all day. So what else might you say other than, that they were justified? In terms of the FBI agent, you work with police all your career. So what else are you going to say? And so I think at the end of the day, if you gave this, or you gave it to Tamir Rice's family's attorneys, you said, hey, you guys go and you investigate and you write a report, I think it would be a far different kind of scenario. And so ultimately, I'm concerned that the prosecutor may hide behind these reports in an effort to, attempt to say that everything was justified. And so I just think that in light of the fact that the experts do not appear, to be disinterested, unbiased parties, I think that there's some concern there because certainly other experts could have drawn other conclusions, and I've read both of their reports, and I think there are some significant deficiencies in each of their reports in terms of what they say. And, look, police have a split second to make a decision, and the Supreme Court said that officers need to be given the benefit of the doubt. In light of that, because you're making split-second calls and you just can't, play hindsight is 20/20. But at the same time, I just think that you have to be fair and objective about it. And I think in being fair and objective, there are multiple things that those officers could have done that they didn't do, which could have had Tamir Rice be alive right now, including, as the clip just said, sort of, knowing, hey, I don't know if he's 12. I don't know what his height is, his weight is. I don't know anything. I just know there's a guy in the park. Why don't we keep a safe distance and try to make inquiries as opposed to rolling straight up on him, getting out of car and shooting him? So we'll see. It'll play out, but I think that there'll be other experts who have things to say that will be contrary to the reports that were written by the experts that McGinty, the prosecutor, commissioned to write. So stay tuned.
Do you think does this remind you of the Michael Brown case?
Do I think? What's that?
Does this kind of remind you of the Michael Brown situation?
No, I think that every case has to be dealt with on its own merits. And, Michael Brown is a story that we could talk about for half an hour, on its own. But the concern that I have is that, when the prosecutor controls the grand jury, right? When I used to present cases to the grand jury, you give the case to the grand jury, you instruct the grand jury on the law, you tell the grand jury, what's going on. You control completely. So I'm controlling as a prosecutor when I was the flow of information they get. So if the prosecutor goes in there with those reports and the prosecutor uses those reports as the Bible, chapter and verse, what else do you think the grand jurors are going to do? They're going to exonerate. So I just think that how information is conveyed to people means everything. And the interesting thing about any trial is that you always have two professors in the room. You have one professor that says something that's perfectly logical, perfectly clear, and perfectly believable. And then you have the other professor, the other attorney, get up and say something, the same thing, only with a different point of view. And so the concern is that if the prosecutor hides behind those reports and doesn't give them the alternative views or point out the deficiencies in the report to the